They said I was too weak, too soft, too scared. They laughed when I trembled during training. They whispered when they thought I couldn't hear them. But on September 15th, at 15,000 feet above the Pentagon Memorial Ceremony, when the alarms screamed through the aircraft and the wind was cutting like razors, there was only one person they trusted to hold the American flag: me. And as I stood at that open door, looking down at the faces that had mocked me for months, I smiled, because they had no idea who they were really dealing with. My name is Sarah Mitchell. I'm 28 years old, and this is the story of how the people who called me worthless discovered I was the most decorated female paratrooper in U.S. military history. For 6 months, I had been living a lie. Not by choice, but by direct orders from the Pentagon. I was undercover in my own military base, posing as a rookie recruit in the 82nd Airborne Division. To everyone around me, I was just Sarah, the nervous girl from Ohio who barely made it through basic training. I stuttered when sergeants yelled at me. I dropped my equipment during drills. I looked like I was about to cry every time we did parachute training. But the truth? I had completed over 300 combat jumps across Afghanistan, Iraq, and classified missions in 3 other countries. I had been personally commended by 2 presidents. My real rank? Lieutenant Colonel. My real job? I was investigating a massive corruption ring within the base's leadership. The irony was killing me. These people who treated me like dirt had no idea they were disrespecting one of the most elite soldiers in the entire U.S. Army. The abuse started small. During mess hall, I'd sit alone while other recruits whispered about weak Sarah who's gonna wash out. Sergeant Collins, a man half my size who'd never seen real combat, would make me do extra push-ups while screaming, "Mitchell, you're embarrassing the uniform." But the worst was my bunkmate, Jessica. She was dating Captain Rodriguez, and she made sure everyone knew I was beneath them. "I don't know why they even let girls like you in," she'd say while painting her nails. "You're gonna get real soldiers killed out there." Every night, I'd lie in my bunk listening to them mock me. About how I jumped like a scared cat during training. How I probably peed myself during the helicopter rides. How I was definitely gonna quit before graduation. If only they knew that just 2 months earlier, I had jumped into hostile territory in Syria to extract a captured Navy SEAL. Alone. At night. Under enemy fire. Everything came to a head during the base's annual Memorial Day ceremony. It was a massive event. Families, local politicians, media, and top military brass from Washington were all attending. Captain Rodriguez was in charge of the ceremony, and he announced that they needed volunteers for the honor guard. When I raised my hand, the entire room erupted in laughter. "Mitchell," Rodriguez laughed so hard he was crying. "You want to be in the honor guard? You can barely march in a straight line." The other recruits were practically rolling on the floor. Jessica stood up and said, "Captain, maybe she could hold the water bottles for the real soldiers." The room exploded again. But then Rodriguez had what he thought was a brilliant idea. "You know what, Mitchell? I'm going to give you a chance to prove yourself. The ceremony includes a parachute demonstration. If you're so eager to serve your country, you can jump with the flag." The room went dead silent. Everyone knew the flag jump was the most prestigious honor of the ceremony. It was always done by the most experienced, most decorated paratrooper on base. "But sir," Sergeant Collins stammered, "she's just a recruit. She's only done training jumps." Rodriguez waved him off. "If Mitchell wants to play with the big boys, let's see what she's made of. What do you say, Mitchell? Ready to show us you're not just talk?" I felt every eye in that room burning into me. I could hear Jessica whispering to her friends, "She's gonna say no. She's too scared." For a moment, I almost broke character. I almost told them exactly who they were dealing with. But my orders were clear. Maintain cover until the investigation was complete. So I did what weak, scared Sarah would do. I trembled. I looked nervous. And then I said, "Yes, sir. I'll do it." The room erupted again. This time it wasn't laughter. It was shock. Rodriguez's face changed. He clearly expected me to back down. "You sure about this, Mitchell? This isn't training wheels anymore. This is the real deal. In front of thousands of people. With the American flag." "I understand, sir." That's when I saw him. A man in a dark suit standing in the back of the room. He caught my eye and gave the slightest nod. General Morrison, my real commanding officer. The investigation was about to conclude, and this ceremony was going to be the perfect cover for the arrests. Rodriguez was sealing his own fate, and he had no idea. The next 2 weeks were torture. Every day someone would remind me about my big jump. They'd ask if I was practicing my screaming or if I had written my will yet. Jessica even started a betting pool on whether I'd chicken out or pass out in the plane. She made sure I heard her tell her boyfriend, $20 says she cries before we even take off. Meanwhile, I was secretly coordinating with my real team. The corruption ring included Rodriguez, Collins, and 3 other officers who had been selling military equipment and taking bribes. The plan was to arrest them immediately after the ceremony. But first, I had to complete this jump. Not just any jump, the most watched, most important ceremonial jump of the year. And I had to do it while everyone expected me to fail spectacularly. The night before the ceremony, Jessica cornered me in the bathroom. You know, Sarah, it's not too late to back out. I mean, everyone already knows you're a joke, but if you mess up tomorrow, you'll be the laughingstock of the entire military. I looked at her in the mirror and said, "Don't worry about me, Jessica. I think I'll surprise everyone." If she only knew how right she was. September 15th dawned perfect. Clear skies, light winds, thousands of people filled the base parade grounds. Local news crews, military families, and VIPs from Washington all gathered to honor our fallen heroes. I sat in the staging area, watching the other paratroopers suit up. These were real professionals, men and women with hundreds of jumps under their belts. And then there was me, the recruit who got lucky. Rodriguez walked over with his clipboard, grinning like he'd already won. "Last chance to back out, Mitchell. No shame in admitting you're not ready for this level of responsibility." "I'm ready, sir." "Your funeral," he laughed. Then he turned to the other jumpers. "Make sure you watch Mitchell carefully up there. If she freezes up, you'll need to help her out of the plane." Master Sergeant Williams, a 20-year veteran with over 1,000 jumps, looked at me with what I thought was pity. "Don't worry, kid. I'll keep an eye on you." As we walked toward the aircraft, I could hear the announcer's voice booming over the speakers. "Ladies and gentlemen, today's flag jump will be performed by our brave paratroopers, led by recruit Sarah Mitchell in her first ceremonial jump." The crowd murmured. Someone in the stands actually said, "They're letting a recruit carry the flag? That seems risky." The C-130 was packed with 12 paratroopers, all veterans except for me. As we climbed to 15,000 feet, the jokes started. "Hey, Mitchell, you know the difference between a training jump and this one? If you screw up here, it's on national television," laughed Corporal Jensen. "Maybe we should have brought a backup flag, just in case she drops it," added Sergeant Torres. I sat there, clutching the folded American flag, playing my part perfectly. I let my hands shake a little. I took deep breaths like I was trying to calm my nerves. But inside, I was completely calm. This was just another jump. Easier than most, actually. No enemy fire, no night vision required, no tactical objectives except looking good for the cameras. Master Sergeant Williams leaned over. "You okay, Mitchell? You look a little green." "Just nervous, Sergeant. This is a big honor. Biggest honor in the military, kid. Don't mess it up." That's when the loadmaster's voice crackled over the intercom. 10 minutes to drop zone. Gear check. As we stood up for equipment check, something strange happened. Williams was inspecting my gear when he paused at my altimeter. "Mitchell, this is a military-grade precision altimeter. Where did you get this?" I had made a mistake. In my undercover role, I should have been using standard training equipment. Instead, I was wearing the same professional gear I'd used on dozens of combat missions. "I borrowed it from Supply, Sergeant." He studied me more carefully. "And these gloves. These are custom tactical gloves. I've only seen these on special forces." Other paratroopers started looking at my equipment. My boots were custom made for special operations. My helmet had modifications that only elite units used. 5 minutes to drop zone, the loadmaster announced. Williams stepped closer. "Mitchell, I've been jumping for 20 years, and I've never seen a recruit with gear like this. Who exactly are you?" That's when the radio crackled with an unexpected transmission. "Aircraft 77 Alpha, this is Pentagon Control. We have a priority message for Lieutenant Colonel Mitchell. The entire plane went dead silent. The loadmaster handed me the radio with shaking hands. Every paratrooper in that plane was staring at me like they'd seen a ghost. "This is Mitchell," I said into the radio, dropping the scared recruit voice for the first time in 6 months. "Colonel Mitchell, this is General Harrison at the Pentagon. The investigation is complete. You are cleared to resume normal operations. Congratulations on a successful mission." Williams almost fell over. "Lieutenant Colonel? Colonel?" I stood up straight for the first time in months, my posture changing from nervous recruit to military officer. "Master Sergeant Williams, allow me to properly introduce myself. Lieutenant Colonel Sarah Mitchell, 1st Special Forces Operational Detachment, 300 combat jumps, 3 Purple Hearts, and Congressional Medal of Honor recipient." The plane was so quiet you could hear the engines humming. Jensen's voice cracked. "Medal of Honor? The Medal of Honor? 1 minute to drop zone," the loadmaster called. But his voice was shaky now. I moved to the door with the confidence of someone who had done this hundreds of times in much more dangerous situations. The flag felt light in my hands. Nothing compared to the 80-pound packs I'd jumped with in combat zones. "Ma'am?" William stammered. "I had no idea. The way you acted, the way you—" "I was undercover, Sergeant. Investigating corruption in the base leadership. And thanks to Captain Rodriguez's arrogance, we now have everything we need for prosecution. Door open. 30 seconds. The wind rushed into the plane like a hurricane. Below us, thousands of people watched through binoculars and camera lenses. The parade ground looked like a tiny square from 15,000 feet up. I stepped to the edge of the door, holding the American flag. For 6 months, these people had watched weak Sarah stumble through training. Now they were about to see who I really was. 10 seconds. Williams keyed his radio. "Ground control. This is Jumpmaster Williams. Be advised, we have Lieutenant Colonel Mitchell aboard. I repeat, Medal of Honor recipient Lieutenant Colonel Mitchell is jumping with the flag." Down on the ground, I could imagine the chaos that announcement was causing. "Go! Go! Go!" I stepped out of that plane like I was stepping off a curb. No hesitation, no fear, perfect form. The flag streamed behind me as I fell through the crystal-clear air. But this wasn't just any jump. This was my vindication, my moment to show every person who had mocked me, doubted me, and treated me like dirt exactly who they had been disrespecting. At 5,000 feet, I deployed my chute with textbook precision. The flag unfurled perfectly, creating a stunning visual as I glided toward the landing zone. I touched down in the center of the parade ground with surgical precision, right on the designated X. The flag landing was so perfect it looked choreographed. But instead of the usual applause, there was stunned silence. Then I heard the announcer's voice, clearly confused. "Ladies and gentlemen, we've just received word that today's flag jump was performed by Lieutenant Colonel Sarah Mitchell, Medal of Honor recipient, and one of the most decorated paratroopers in U.S. military history." The crowd erupted. But this time, it wasn't laughter. It was thunderous applause. As I gathered my chute, I saw familiar faces in the crowd. Rodriguez was standing near the VIP section, his face completely white. Jessica was in the family section, her mouth hanging open. But then I saw something that made my heart race with satisfaction. Military police were moving through the crowd, positioning themselves near Rodriguez and the other officers under investigation. General Morrison approached me with a broad smile. "Outstanding work, Colonel. Both on the investigation and on that jump. Textbook, perfect. Thank you, sir. It feels good to drop the act." That's when Rodriguez made his fatal mistake. He pushed through the crowd, his face red with anger and embarrassment. "What the hell is going on here? Mitchell is a recruit. She's barely been here 6 months. General Morrison turned to face him. "Captain Rodriguez, I don't believe you've been properly introduced. This is Lieutenant Colonel Sarah Mitchell, Special Investigator for the Pentagon Inspector General's office. She's been documenting your illegal activities for the past 6 months." Rodriguez's face went from red to gray. "Illegal activities? I don't know what you're talking about. The equipment sales, Captain. The falsified reports. The bribes from defense contractors. Colonel Mitchell has documented everything. That's when the military police moved in. Captain Rodriguez, you're under arrest for conspiracy, theft of government property, and accepting bribes." As they cuffed him, Rodriguez looked at me with pure hatred. "You were spying on us this whole time? Every single day, Captain. Every insult. Every moment you treated me like dirt. I was building a case against you." Sergeant Collins was arrested next, along with 2 other officers. As they were led away, Collins shouted, "But you acted so weak. You acted like you didn't know anything." "That's called acting, Sergeant. Apparently, I'm better at it than you are at hiding your crimes." As the arrests were happening, something beautiful occurred. Every paratrooper from the plane was gathering around me, and one by one they came to attention and saluted. Master Sergeant Williams stepped forward first. "Ma'am, I owe you an apology. We all do. We had no idea we were serving alongside such a distinguished officer. No apology necessary, Sergeant. You were treating who you thought I was appropriately. It wasn't personal." But the real moment came when Jessica approached. The same Jessica who had mocked me for months, who had organized betting pools about my failure. She could barely look me in the eye. Colonel Mitchell, I'm so sorry. The things I said, the way I treated you. Jessica, you showed me exactly who you are when you thought I couldn't do anything about it. That tells me everything I need to know about your character." Then, General Morrison addressed the crowd. "Ladies and gentlemen, you've just witnessed something extraordinary. Colonel Mitchell spent 6 months undercover, enduring disrespect and mockery, all while conducting a complex investigation that just saved the taxpayers millions of dollars and held corrupt officers accountable." The crowd's applause was deafening, but what happened next was what I'll remember forever. A little girl in the crowd broke free from her parents and ran up to me. She couldn't have been more than 8 years old. "Are you really a hero?" she asked, looking up at me with wide eyes. I knelt down to her level. "I'm just a soldier, sweetheart, just like all the brave men and women here today. But you jumped out of a plane with the flag, and you caught the bad guys." I looked around at the crowd, at the faces of people who 6 hours earlier had expected me to fail spectacularly. Now they were looking at me with respect, admiration, and something I hadn't seen in 6 months. Genuine appreciation. "You know what the best part is?" I told the little girl. "The people who said I was too weak to carry the flag just watched me carry it perfectly. And the people who said I couldn't handle responsibility just watched me complete one of the most important investigations in this base's history." As the ceremony concluded, I was approached by a news reporter. "Colonel Mitchell, what would you say to people who underestimate others based on appearances?" I thought about Rodriguez in handcuffs, about Jessica's mortified face, about all the jokes and mockery I'd endured. I'd say this: be very careful who you underestimate. That weak person you're mocking might be the strongest person in the room. That scared person you're laughing at might be the bravest. And that unqualified person you're dismissing might be the most qualified person you've ever met. Today, Rodriguez is serving 5 years in military prison. Collins lost his rank and was dishonorably discharged. The corruption ring was completely dismantled. And me? I got promoted to full colonel and was assigned to lead the Pentagon's new anti-corruption task force. But the best part isn't the promotion or the vindication. The best part is knowing that somewhere out there might be another weak recruit who's actually the strongest person in the room. And maybe, just maybe, my story will remind people to think twice before they judge someone by their cover. They called me weak until I jumped from that plane holding the flag. But the truth is, I was never weak. I was undercover. And there's a big difference between being powerless and choosing not to show your power yet. Sometimes the most dangerous person in the room is the one everyone thinks is harmless. Remember that the next time you're tempted to underestimate someone, because you never know when that scared recruit might be a decorated war hero in disguise. You know what? Sharing my story with you today meant everything to me. And if it touched your heart the way I hope it did, I need to ask you for one small favor. Most people listen to stories like mine and move on without hitting that subscribe button. I get it. Life's busy. But here's the thing. That little button? It's completely free, takes 2 seconds, and it's the only way I can keep sharing these real stories of people who refused to stay down when the world counted them out. I don't ask for money. I don't ask you to buy anything. I just ask that if my story reminded you that you're stronger than people think, that you're more capable than they believe, that you're worth more than their judgment, hit subscribe, because somewhere out there, there's another person just like I was, underestimated, overlooked, waiting for their moment to prove everyone wrong. And your subscription helps me reach them with the reminder that their time is coming too. So if you believe that everyone deserves to have their strength recognized, if you believe that the underdog can win, if you believe that respect should be earned and given, subscribe. It's free. It helps more than you know, and it tells me that stories like mine matter to you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for believing. And thank you for helping me reach the next person who needs to hear that they're stronger than anyone thinks.